We adjourned from closed session at 6:48 p.m. and reconvened in public at 6:50. No action was taken during closed session. At this time, we're going to go ahead and do the Pledge of Allegiance. Right hand over the heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes for the November 29th, 2022 regular board meeting, as well as the December 13th, 2022 regular board meeting.
Well, second.
Any discussion? No discussion. The motion carries. I'm sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries 5-0. Is there an audience to address the board? All right. Superintendent's report.
Thank you, Trustee Romero, Mrs. Romero. Thank you, board, for the opportunity to share my superintendent's report this evening. I wanted to just delineate some of the things or highlight some of the pieces of discussion. We will discuss under learning engagement, the California School Dashboard that was released to the public in December 2022. A new process that MESA is moving forward with as a result of the outcomes of the California School Dashboard, and then get into some pieces of health and wellness, facilities, attendance, and upcoming events. So beginning first with the California School Dashboard, I wanted to orient the board to that document. So this dashboard was released in December, as I mentioned, and it in effect provides an overview of the metrics and the standing of the district and the school specifically. And it's in all of the areas that you see here on the screen. Each one of these provides a rating, and there's a couple of different ways in which they're measured. One is that they're measured both against, the state and state outcomes, also measured against your own standing and growth in prior years. So as you make improvements and as you grow, there is some acknowledgement that every single school just has a different starting point. So all of these fields are fields that were part of the dashboard. One last point that I will make about the dashboard: it had been effectively on pause for the last 2 years, or 3 years almost, in large part because these metrics were either not available, as with the CASP assessment, or were very difficult and almost impossible in some ways to measure, as you could see, for example, with absenteeism, particularly during hybrid and the a couple of years ago when we were on distance. So all of this is information that is known to us as a staff, but obviously having it compiled in one place bears with it a different level of examination and scrutiny. So let me just start from the top and work my way down. You have different fields here: chronic absenteeism, suspension rate, English learner progress, English language arts, mathematics. And then all of the others are effectively self-reported, and they are fields that are intended to advance important priorities that the state has set out. So having, for example, quality teachers, quality instructional materials and facilities, implementation of academic standards, and by those we mean new standards that started as early as 2010. Parent and family engagement, a local climate survey, and the access to broad course of study. So any one of these could be, an hour-long conversation. There's quite a bit to unpack. But in the interest of time and trying to be, as succinct as possible, I'll say this. This is effectively a snapshot of where we are right now. It has, a lot of cause for some self-reflection and some definite action and or sense of urgency. The English language arts and mathematics are pieces that the board is aware of, in large part because we talked about CASP results in the past. The English learner progress is somewhat embedded into that. And then as far as suspension rate and chronic absenteeism, it is something that we are now focusing on and revisiting anew. So the rating scales, as you see here, are intended to really highlight areas of growth and further examination. So for example, absenteeism, you would want that to be low. That's where our target needs to be, low. But it is high, and it is high in large part because of very specific groups of students, subgroups or student groups as they're known, that we need to really pay closer attention to. Suspension rate, that is a byproduct of the number of suspensions overall, as well as the number of students within each student group that have been suspended, and on down the list. All of this is actually contained in the SARC, so we will look at it more in a more granular way with tables and charts in that document. But for the time being, I wanted to just represent that this is something that we can expect year over year, and that is something that has come back online as of December of this past year. So if I can get to maybe the next slide. So in part because of that performance on this dashboard, we as a district, or MESA as a district, has been notified of being placed on differentiated assistance. And what does that mean? That is a process, as it says on the slide, that the state has developed to partner districts with their local county office of education, and for the purpose of developing a plan for improvement. Now, we were just notified about this in December, right? Which is a difficult time of year to enact a plan. The good news, if there is a silver lining, is that we've been working on many of these, knowing the numbers. We've known some of these numbers now for 6 months or even more. So these are areas that are very well encapsulated in our LCAP, that are attributed to goals and actions in the LCAP, dating all the way back to May, June of 2022, and even further beyond that. And there are areas that we are, looking at very closely already. So I'll give you the specifics. There are three priorities under which we fall under differentiated assistance: pupil achievement, low status on both ELA or math. In our case, it's for math specifically, but obviously we can improve in ELA, no doubt. And as far as the having a low status on English learner progress. So both of those are leading us to being flagged, if you will, for pupil achievement. Pupil engagement. We don't have a graduation rate. We're not a high school, but obviously chronic absenteeism is a point of concern. And then lastly is school climate. That has to do with our suspension rate and the number of instances where students have been disciplined in that fashion. So the question then obviously becomes, now what? And the now what is, we have set forward our plans. We have started initiatives that are relatively new to us and that we want to focus on. So our planning has really already been factored in some of these results because they're not new to us. They just happen to have been put in a package by the state in the dashboard. So now what I want to propose or want to offer up as something that we continue to focus on is the LCAP plan and many of the school plans that we have developed. Now, we have to constantly revisit those. The actions of the LCAP are written for a year, but that's not to say that we don't pivot or make adjustments in year. But that is an important one. And, the framework for the future, for the moment, we'll put that off to the side. I think right now it's just about being more immediate, and that is where the LCAP comes in. We have assigned funding and hired on personnel with the idea that we're going to shore up the areas that we need to shore up, or at least really focus on, so that we start to see the kind of growth and course correct the way we intend. So the next slide is a breakdown of some of our major initiatives. Some of them are new, some of them are being reworked in a way that is giving us some more specificity to what we need to do. So let me just highlight a few. Number one, we're going to continue to focus, and they're listed there as learning supports and accelerators. What we're after is supporting student learning, but accelerating it, regardless of where students fall on the continuum. If a student is not achieving at grade level, we want them to grow exponentially. But if a student is achieving above grade level, we don't want them to stagnate. We want to continue to push them along as well. So I want to highlight the two. First of all, we are continuing to focus on and really focusing on extracurriculars, things that fall outside of the school day, whether that's activities, clubs. We have a very robust athletics program. We have an after-school program that expanded. We have a number of other activities, whether it's mock trial, to name one, Battle of the Books is just coming online, but CAO is another. There's a lot of activities that students have that we want to build on. Some of them have been historical that we want to continue with post-pandemic, and some we want to continue to foster so that we get learning beyond the classroom, but engagement beyond the classroom. Beyond that, the common grade level time. This is something that has been really much needed for our staff. The ability to meet week to week, make plans, adjust those plans, really focus on what students are doing in a shorter increment of time, so we don't let time slip us by. So those are things that have just been reworked. They are things that either have come back or things that have been reworked to foster better connections with students, to extend their learning, or to make their learning different from bell to bell, okay? Beyond that, we have focused quite a bit on professional learning this year. Just in December and again in February, our grades 3 through 5 engaged in what are called walkthroughs. That's where they get to see their partners and their teacher colleagues teach, for the purposes of seeing in a very specific way what kinds of methods and approaches are working that they want to make agreements around, highlight, and really celebrate, right? And what kinds of things maybe work better for certain grade levels or certain student groups. So those are all things that are relatively new to us that we're still grappling with, but are very necessary to improve our school program. You've heard much mention of early childhood learning. We talked a great deal about that. We have students that come to us with a vast and very disparate background, some with extensive preschool background, some with very little to none. We know they come to us differently, and we are definitely reworking our instructional materials, our paraprofessional support, and our outside the classroom support, like Ms. Christine Garza, supporting and seeing us be very targeted and specific to deal with a range of learners. So I just want to represent that we have a number of things that we've initiated. Some of these have just come on really in August, September. So we've given it time to start to really take hold. And each one of these, the promise is that they stay with us so that we can continue to refine them and make sure that they're reaching more and more students along the way. The other one that I'll point out is the mental health and social emotional learning. Our counseling support really expanded this year. That is happening where we are having small groups and individual counseling to deal with students that need that, whether it's because of grief or because of needs around social skills or interpersonal skills, coping skills, a variety of things that have surfaced. Our psych support has expanded, and it's not only for our special education, but really to steward our program. And lastly, we have onboarded a curriculum that really is intended for all students to teach how to be a community member, how to work with others, how to self-regulate, things of that nature that is very specific to grade levels. So we have done a lot, but we just have to stay the course. We have to monitor what we're doing, and we have to stay committed. We have to make adjustments. And it's something that our staff is very well aware of. None of this is a mystery to them. In fact, many of these things were derived from things that the staff really advocated for or felt the need to move forward with. And there will be continued efforts around refining, but also thinking about what's next and what can we manage as we head into the latter part of this year. So I just want to pause there and give the board an opportunity to ask any clarifying questions or respond. And one last point, we do have the SARC coming up, which will also allow us to view some of this data a bit differently.
I just want to mention that I love the fact that you're so passionate about what you're doing. And I think that goes a long ways. And I think that's what we need in order to make a change, a positive change.
Well, thank you. And I will just say this. This is not news that it's not news to me. We know, or to the staff, we know that the achievement is where it is. We understand that. And some of these they're perhaps a little bit longer standing. And there were a lot of efforts years ago to put these in place that were unfortunately disrupted along the way these last couple of years. We're trying to get ourselves course corrected and really get ourselves on the right track. The staff has been very flexible around that, but it's also a challenge of how much can we take on at once. And that's the other part that I just want to represent. I don't see anybody that is not on board. I see very committed people, but it's a matter of how can we do it the right way so that we don't just get very undisciplined. And that's always going to be a challenge for us in public schools and here specifically as a small school. But I think the passion that I share is very consistent with where this community really wants to see itself and where I know that all of you are interested in taking the school.
I guess I have a comment, more of a question. The dashboard has really changed as well because it has different parameters now, but it also used to actually give a numerical rating, which it does not. It's really more of a progress indicator. One thing you have to be careful is sometimes low bar means good, and sometimes it means really needs improvement. And so when you look at that, you really have to look at what high and low means, because for different indicators, you're actually wanting to be low or you're wanting to be high. So as people review that, make sure that they don't just look to see, oh, it's 1 bar or 2 bar. In some cases, that's good. In some cases, it's not so great. But where I have more of a question that does not have to be answered in this, because it may be unpacked later when we review the other, is that the screen following indicated that we were very low because of our priority score, but the dashboard does not indicate us as very low. The dashboard just says low. So I didn't know if those were actually two different things, or based on the score, it just gave us another opportunity to reach agreements with our local education office to help us, advance from being in the low sector, to more of the medium or high.
Yeah, I had the same conclusion. And so those are the kinds of things that we'll be clarifying. I think in some ways that snapshot that you saw, it's a little bit of a generic kind of model, maybe not tailored to us, but the planning will be. And so I'm still waiting for more information to come my way, but it was a topic of conversation amongst the county superintendents. One other item to note, and it's not to say that I'm at ease with this, but across, I want to say there are 19 districts in the county. I want to say that 14 of them are on differentiated assistance. So I think much of that is attributed to the conditions that we've experienced over the last several years and that linger, unfortunately. And certainly the impact to learning has lingered. But with that said, we're looking for productive ways to accelerate. And right now we're trying to be very targeted and very specific with our resources. So definitely more, at a more granular level, we'll be able to talk about it in the SARC and when we have that conversation, and there are some things to highlight there as well. but thank you for the commentary. Moving forward, I wanted to switch gears here a little bit. Health and safety. We continue to do our best to notify. And we did our best really to inform parents as more anecdotally, more in person around, just being very thoughtful when it came to the break. We still continue to have at-home tests. There are people that parents and families that have reached out to us to be able to secure those. We continue to have them to make them available. I can't stress that enough. It's important. And we're trying to balance the need to be in classrooms, in classrooms at school learning with not creating, conditions that necessitate more kids being out. It's a hard balance to strike right now, for sure, but it is one that we're trying to move forward with. So I'll have more to say on the attendance piece of that. Moving forward and switching gears, facilities, very, very happy to report that for our HVAC replacement, all major construction has been completed. There are still some odds and ends that do need to be finalized. There's what's called a punch list, which is the last, set of walkthroughs and down fine tooth comb details that need to be secured. We are cataloging anything that is, needs attention or needs to be repaired, and we will continue to communicate with our contractor. But this is many, many months in the making. But I couldn't be more appreciative of our staff, who has dealt with quite a bit of the ebb and flow of this. Some more than others, of course, but all of them have been put out to one extent or another. I'm very thankful for them. So the final details are being worked out, and tentatively expecting that this project will close out here in January at the end of the month. The construction on the kitchen is complete. Our kitchen has been fully operational since last week. We experienced a bit of a hiccup there to start the week, but that was very quickly remedied. And so we've been getting progress on that daily, and I'm very glad that we can start to get ourselves back underway when it comes to our food services. And on that note, I'm just very appreciative of Moorpark Unified. Initially we knocked on a lot of doors. I knocked on a lot of doors, and a lot of people said no, they couldn't help us, not short term. And they did, and very appreciative to that crew. And I'll be sending the superintendent and that staff a message of gratitude, because they really stepped up for us in an ongoing fashion. Again, 4 months plus, when it was supposed to be 2 to 3 weeks. So that was huge. And so I'm glad we're at this place. Next is just a few pictures just of the facade, the outdoors, the front of the school. That is, I think it's symbolic, because that was an area that was one of the last ones to be shored up, but we're there now, and very excited to be able to welcome our families and our kids with, just a very improved and much more suitable facilities and spaces. Over the last several months, understandably so, this project garnered a lot of attention. But coming off of this break, I wanted to highlight that it's not the only piece. It's not the only, those aren't the only things that receive attention for us. And I wanted to make just a couple of points about routine maintenance. First of all, it's the focus on maintaining buildings, our grounds. We have 17 acres on this property, and all of it is important. And we have a lot of spaces within, a lot of office spaces. You name it, a lot of things that happen here. And it is a facility that's been around for a long time, over 80 years. And within that time, things can fall into disrepair. So there is an ongoing need at all levels to really pay attention to our maintenance and facilities. To that point, you see 2 pictures there on the left, if you will. Those were lighting. That's lighting that some of it wasn't operational, that we got back operational. Why? Because we want well-lit spaces, spaces that are safe, spaces that are inviting, and where everything works. That's really the goal. And then there on the right, as you're looking at the screen, that's this very space, and the science and the cafeteria cafeteria is not pictured there, but those floors were waxed and brought back into, just kind of better condition through our own maintenance crew who worked throughout the week, throughout the break to, really welcome everybody back with a better looking facility than when they last saw it. They were moved next door, so they're there. Yeah, they're just cleared out. But our facilities team does incredible work. They take a lot of pride in their work. Eliseo, Eddie, Guillermo, Roel, all of our evening staff, some of them whom are still here, and just these folks are just incredible, and a lot of real attention to things that sometimes go unnoticed. But I wanted to just give them that my gratitude and our appreciation for that kind of work. All right. Lastly, attendance. Wanted to just make mention. Our attendance, as I mentioned before, is a priority. We were pretty hard hit this last month, and our attendance dipped. We just today, and we have been talking over the break and now about what to do about it. I know that some things are outside of our ability to influence, but just today, we really started to talk about to debrief some of the notifications that have gone out to parents to really inform them in a very clear way of where things are and in attendance, and as far as their child or their children's attendance, and to clarify maybe some misconceptions that are out there about the way in which attendance is captured, cataloged, and what it all means. I know that any day missed is an opportunity missed. That's how I feel. That's how I've always felt. But, we are definitely going to be tinkering around some pieces beyond that to notify and to really be more strategic, given, where we are with attendance. So this is something that continues to be a priority, but we are unfortunately also dealing with some challenging conditions that make it difficult for us to push ahead the way we'd like to. And then lastly, just some upcoming events. Some of these you'll see a little later, but we've, this time of year, as soon as the calendar turns, we start really focusing on our 8th grade transitions. Our kids go to a number of high schools, primarily Rio Mesa, but not exclusively. Privates, charter, other districts, other schools within the Oxnard Union High School District or neighboring districts. We have our quarterly assemblies coming up. Very proud of this one, middle school trip that we have planned to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, building an engineer. Yeah, it's an engineer day, but it's on a Saturday, and we've done that. We did that last year, looking to bring that again this year. And then we've got some days here where we're not going to be in session, but where some of us will be continuing to work and collaborate around ongoing learning and planning. So with that said, that brings the superintendent's report to conclusion.
Anyway, I just have a few questions with regards to what you spoke about. HVAC is up and operational right now. I understand that we've been hybrid for the last couple of years, and that we've been full session this year. I'm very interested to see the comparison of electrical bills now that we have the HVAC fully operational. As I expressed before, I have my concerns. I think that we should have a plan be able to deal with that. And I think that you're going to start seeing, especially as we hit May and June, that we're going to see a real spike in electrical bills and how we're going to cope with that. That's one of the things that I would like to have reported on as we move forward.
Another thing I was thinking as well, I'm not sure how we're going to show our gratitude to Moore Park, but I would also think something fun in terms of kids making posters, signing cards, pictures of the kids showing their appreciation. And, I'm not sure where we stand on the budget, but maybe even giving that cafeteria and all the workers, like maybe we surprise them with some cookies and cupcakes, like a true gesture of thanks for their efforts, so that they know that we truly appreciated, all that they did for us. And then another thing with regards to attendance, I think it is very unclear for parents what absenteeism truly is and how it's counted. So I think it would be helpful if we are messaging out and sending some sort of notice, because I think a lot of parents say, well, as long as I let the school know that they were sick, it doesn't count against the school. It's fine. Everything's fine. So I think understanding, that's an approved absence because they're sick, but it is still an absence, and how it affects us would be helpful, because I think that's very unknown or very unclear to a majority of the community.
I also wanted to say one other thing. I'm really excited about the field trip to San Luis Obispo, to going to Cal Poly. I think it was a tremendous success last year. Look for another success this year. I would like to see how we might be also able to involve Ace Charter High School, because that is exactly what they prepare their students to do, is how to enter into the engineering fields through CAD, through robotics, through all sorts of different programs. And I see that it's set aside for 30 students, that perhaps that those students that choose to go, that are made aware that Ace Charter is in our local Ventura County, that could maybe might be a potential path for them in order to further that kind of a career.
Anybody else? Okay. All right. With that said, we'll go ahead and move forward with the board members' reports and communications. We have correspondence from the Ventura County Office of Education, where it grants an extension for MESA to file an audit report. And that letter is dated December 9th. We also have another correspondence dated January 13, 2023. And that relates to VCOE agreeing with MESA's positive certification. Would you like to talk about that?
Just to make one point, the positive certification is obviously very important to us. It tells us that we are in good fiscal standing and fiscal health. But just to clarify a point about the filing for extension, that really comes largely from our auditor, our independent auditor, in communication with them and trying to solidify our audit cycles. They are experiencing, quite a bit of bandwidth, and from a staffing perspective, they asked us to request an extension. So the date is February 28th. And in speaking with Mrs. Peterson, she feels that that is more than ample time to get this accomplished. So I just didn't want the board to perhaps get the wrong notion into why that was put forward.
Any correspondence from board members? I have a couple. I am attending a school safety dinner, and that is Monday, January 30th. It's for board members, their spouses, and superintendents. I'm taking my husband with me. So I'm going to pass this out. So if you want to take a photo, it's between, I think it's from 6 to 8, and it takes place at the Ventura County Office of Education in Camarillo. And I know that Mr. Sullivan had a big interest in that topic. So I wanted to mention that. And there's a couple of new laws that I also that caught my attention, that I wanted to just briefly tell the board. There's 2 new state holidays. We have Juneteenth, which is June 19. We also have April 24th, Genocide Remembrance Day. I don't believe that they affect the school calendar, but I just thought I'd mention it. There's an assembly bill that passed and that requires school districts to send correspondence to families relating to how to safely store ammunition and guns. And that has to be sent to the families at the beginning of the school year. And there's also an immunity that applies to schools. So if for some reason that notice doesn't have the proper language, they can't come back and say, it's your fault. There's also an AV assembly bill that passed 1703. It's not a requirement, but it encourages districts to collaborate with indigenous local tribes for them to discuss further and educate students about the history relating to American Indians, Native Indians. I thought that was interesting. And that was it for my part. Anything further? All right.
Well, as far as concerns, I wanted to check in again to see if there will be a drama performance this spring. Sometimes we have done it in the spring in the past, and it's something that we've talked about. I just wanted to see if there's been any advancement on that.
Not on a school-wide performance. That's something that I'll still be looking into. I know that I was informed. It just came up in our staff meeting last week about a 4th grade performance specifically. So some of these things happen at the grade level. But if I recall our conversation previously, there was something having more to do school-wide. So that is something still that I'll look into.
Is there a motion to approve that consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries 5-0. All right. Is there a motion for the consideration of receipt of the 2021-2022 Golden Valley Charter School report on audit of financial statements and supplementary information, including reports on compliance prepared by Feddersen and Company?
I so move.
Any
I'll
dis-
second.
is there any discussion?
My only discussion was that the report that came out said, they were in positive balance and that they would be able to move forward with, the end of the year, and that they had more money kind of when they ended than when they started. So it's in good standing.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries 5-0. No opposition. Is there a motion for the consideration of approval of the MOU with Golden Valley Charter School?
I move that we approve the MOU with Golden Valley Charter School.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? All right, the motion carries 5-0.
And if I can, Mrs. Romero, sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to make a little point and, just obviously Golden Valley has been a long-standing charter school, chartered and through us as a district. But I did want to introduce the board. Ms. Deanna Downs volunteered to be with us this evening, and understanding that many of the board, or maybe many of the trustees, have not met her. She is the executive director now for Golden Valley. I think just in my general impressions of her, she's been fantastic to work with. She comes with a wealth of charter background. She's promoted to panelist. So if you want to take a look. And Ms. Downs, just want to thank you for taking the helm at Golden Valley. And it's been a good onboarding and already some good ideas that have been generated. But I want to introduce you to our board of trustees here at Mesa Union.
Thank you so much. And I appreciate everybody for letting me join you tonight. And Dr. Ramirez has been wonderful to work with as well. So I'm very excited to take the realm of Golden Valley and look forward to working with you all in the future.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you too.
All right, moving on, is there a motion for the consideration of approval of the invoice from Low Voltage Solutions?
Make a motion for the approval of the invoice from Low Voltage Solutions.
Any discussion? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I'm in favor of approving this, just so that you know, but I was also kind of, as I read through the invoice, it seemed to me that we were picking up, we were fixing something that was destroyed by the contractors. And why isn't the contractor, picking up this piece? I'm just kind of curious about that and why that's just been offset to us.
So that's still something that we're working on with the contractor. But given the importance of what we're talking about, our fire alarm system, I didn't want to delay as we go back and forth over what percentage, what amount needs to be addressed. So that is not at all a closed matter with the contractor. That is something very much still pending, but I didn't want to delay the necessary repairs that needed to take place.
Any further discussion?
I had another question regarding that, and I apologize if you did respond to this earlier or not. But one of the things they were talking about was basically how the communication aspect was, a landline, and those have kind of been failing us. And so they were recommending to move to more of a cellular service. And so that wasn't included in this, but I was wondering if we were going towards that, or if we were doing redundancy and then keeping a landline and also putting a cell line in there as well.
That's a great question. So in looking at this, we'll have another updated invoice to bring forward to the board at the next meeting, but we will be moving forward with the cellular signal. It's just a better way of monitoring. It provides us more of a seamless, and more current and modern way of operating than moving forward with the landline. Currently, that's how we're being monitored, but we will be moving forward with their cellular package, if you will, as part of this next wave of repairs. I just approved that today. We'll be communicating on a date very soon.
So on the cellular package, that's simply between our main office, the main focal point, and the company, and where before traditionally it was landlines, and cellular service is a much better way to go. And it's not between cellular service between buildings here. It's just between us and the monitoring company. That having been said, as you go through the process, I just want to make sure that with cellular service, whatever that they choose or we choose, that we've got good connection. That it's not because some providers don't cover this valley well and others cover it better, that we have a provider that will be nice and steady the entire time.
Okay, we'll look into that, and I'll make sure to ask. There's already some responses that we'll be getting. I just wanted to clarify what they were proposing. And there's going to be, we already pay for that monitoring, so now it will be an upgrade. So it will be a bit more cost, but it really isn't a necessary upgrade at this point.
Anything further? All right. All those in favor?
All right.
Any opposition? 5-0, no opposition. Motion carries. All right, is there a motion for the consideration of approval of the proposal from Scott and Sons Electric? Let's see, is there a motion for the consideration of approval of the invoice McClay Construction?
Make a motion for the approval of the invoice from McClay Construction.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor? Any opposition? No. 5-0, motion carries, no opposition. All right, is there a motion for the consideration of approval of the proposal from Scott and Sons Electric?
I'll make a motion for the approval of the proposal from Scott and Sons Electric.
All right, is there a second?
I will second.
Any discussion?
Yes, this is where I wanted to, again, I just thought that these lights are pretty expensive and, for just replacing lights versus, what all did they do? They're not gold plated.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yes, so yes, that is for the replacement of 2 light units that are inserted right into the foundation next to the flagpole. I had the very same reaction when I first heard about it, but it just so happens that those are just very, very expensive units to replace. They do come with a 5-year warranty, and as Scott is his name, he has done a ton of electrical work here for a number of years. He actually worked on this building dating back to that time period. Anyway, the units alone are in the neighborhood of 2,500 each, and there are 2. They just happen to be very expensive. I wish I had a better explanation for you. I debated not repairing them. I debated delaying them. One is completely out. One is nearing end of. It's flashing. I believe that it's still important to be able to replace those. And if we can secure ourselves, they do come with a 5-year warranty. And if we get 10 years out of them, I happen to believe that it's an appropriate expenditure. Make no mistake about it. I wish they were less expensive, but they are high grade. Vehicles can drive over them and them not be damaged, because that is just the way in which they are designed and manufactured. I asked a ton of questions about that, and as soon as I saw it, I got Scott on the phone and asked him about that. And it's just where the parts happen to be. And we're about a month out from being able to receive them. And the labor, he has been always very fair in terms of his labor costs, and his overall cost to the district in many instances goes above and beyond for, again, a fair amount. So, I wish I had a better response for you, but they just happen to be very expensive pieces of equipment.
I'd like to comment on the banners. I really like the banners. There's about 6 or 7. I think they look great.
Thank you. So this one specifically is for the flagpole, which is right in front of the main entrance. And I, for one, would really like to see them back at their full strength.
Well, I agree. I think the lights are necessary, and also according to the flag code, if we're going to leave the flag up, we got to have lights. That's a given. It's just that the cost of them just seem kind of exorbitant.
Well, and I also think, though, they're flush with the ground, and that's the other structural elements, but it's better than also having tripping hazards around there, because we're going to have a flagpole and we're going to light it, but it's also better than having tripping hazards in the main walkway.
Only question with that, with some of the, this is said through the general fund, is there any fund that's that's kind of more restricted that would fall under, that we might be able to pull that out of? I mean, it's a small amount, in the big
Yeah,
picture. but,
It's through routine a restricted maintenance or routine maintenance, deferred maintenance. I mean, those are just different names for it. That's where it would be. It wouldn't be general fund. But routine maintenance, deferred maintenance falls into the general fund anyway. Just happens to be a very specific account. But that's where I envision this coming from.
Anything further? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
No opposition, the motion carries 5-0. Moving on, is there a motion for the consideration of approval of the revised classified salary schedule?
I move that we approve the revised classified salary schedule.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Dr. Ramirez, this is just to align this with the new contract language, is that correct?
Yes, it is. And there's also a very specific piece around meeting or exceeding the minimum wage that some modifications needed to be done on that as well. And it's only specific to, I want to say it's 2 positions.
What about that 5% stipend?
The one for the special day class?
There's an asterisk for the special day class.
Yes, that's embedded. That's been a longstanding part of contract.
Was negotiated.
Not this round, it's been negotiated previously. That's already been codified in contract.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0, no opposition. All right, is there a motion for the consideration of approval of Mesa Union's District Accountability Report Card for the 2021-2022 school year?
I move that we approve the Mesa Union School District Accountability Report Card, SARC, for 2021-2022 school year.
And I'll second the motion.
Any discussion?
I was going to say, Dr. Ramirez, puts it on the screen right here, but what I saw when I was looking through the tables was that we kind of talked about the numbers earlier in the dashboard, and while they're not where we want them to be, when you compare them in the table to the state values, in most of those instances, we are in a better position than the state value. And so while we still see room for growth and improvement, if you do look in the broader sense of the community, we're kind of on par. It's been a tough couple of years for everybody. And so I think that that's something to always take, food for thought, grain of salt, so that when we look at these numbers, we're not really comparing against what 100%, if we got 49%, we're not really comparing against 100 because nobody in the state is at 100%. So I just think it's one of those things to consider. And that's why I find data, which just gives a different tables comparing our groups of students and all of that, and then comparing against outside of our bubble, I find to be really helpful.
Anything further? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
5-0, no opposition, motion carried. Is there a motion for the consideration of acceptance of the quarterly report on Williams uniform complaints?
Make a motion to accept the quarterly report on the Williams uniform complaints.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Only that there were no complaints.
No complaints.
All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0, no opposition, motion carries. All right, is there a motion for the consideration of approval of the Pali Institute agreement?
I move that we approve the Pali Institute agreement.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I'm happy to approve this because it's always been such a highlight for our students They always come back so richly edified by attending this program.
I did notice that there's also 2 scholarships that could be given to kids. Do those scholarships, are they actually given to students, or are they even used?
Yes, I think yes, because inevitably we cannot exclude due to cost. We cannot exclude because a student may not be able to, a student's family may not be able to contribute. So yes, they are utilized, but typically they're not necessarily to a single student, but more deferred. So they put it down as a scholarship, but for us, it's a total cost, and it winds up being a little bit more utilized to kind of lessen the burden on all parents as far as donations that are made to. So I guess that's a long-winded answer of saying, yes, they are utilized, but not in a traditional sense that we allocate them to a specific student.
Who's providing those scholarships? The school, or is it Pally?
They come from Pally, and that's how they are documented in the invoice or in the proposal. The other point that I'll make is something that Mrs. Dryden brought to my attention, and we'll look at this, but the enrollment is not, doesn't coincide. So we'll make that correction.
It is for next year.
It is
So
for next
as we
year.
get
Yeah, we're
closer
thinking
to
2022, 2023. It is for next school year, November.
Anything further? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
5-0, no opposition, motion carries. All right, is there a motion for the consideration of approval of the field trip request to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo?
I move to approve the field trip request to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo.
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion?
I heard a rumor that Dr. Ramirez might go. Is that true?
Mrs. Dryden, at the risk of being unprofessional, the word on the street is accurate. That is absolutely the plan, is for me to attend. So yes, that's definitely on my calendar, personal calendar.
And for the record, I forgot, I've gotten out of the habit. And how is this being funded?
So it's a combination of SLO contributing, but we have money set aside in the LCAP to cover basically experiential field trips or experiential learning, of which I think, you know, setting foot at a university with a very specific focus like this is more than justified for our students.
And what age group is this? 8th?
We're looking at middle school.
Middle
We're
school,
looking at
okay.
6 through 8. We haven't gotten into, you know, who might receive priority. You would imagine, or I would imagine, that 8th graders might be more inclined, but you know, we want to see, we've already put that out there to families, and we'll see what comes our way.
Do students get their own transportation, or is it the school bus?
No, we'll be taking our school bus. We talked about that actually today during our facilities transportation meeting. So it is something where we'll be taking our bus out there, and that's what happened last year. And you know, making it a trip. Say again?
1-day trip.
Yes. So we'll be leaving here at 6. So it's an early trip, and we expect to leave there between 3:30 and 4 possibly. So yeah, it's a nice trip. It's a full day trip, but I think it's well worth it.
I see that you have it slated for 30 students. Is that a cap, or can bus hold more?
The bus can hold more, and you know, it's something where we just want to have a comfortable ride.
Right.
But we'll see, you know, how much interest. I think you all know me well enough to know that if there's interest, we're going to try to find a way to get us there. But right now, that's what we're looking at, is 30, because we want to make sure that it's a long trip. You know, it's a lengthy trip, and we want to make sure that everybody there is comfortable.
Plus, they were asking for at least 5 chaperones.
All right.
And Mr. Di Maria has volunteered
Thank you,
to
Mr.
attend.
Barber.
I mean, just fabulous, you know. Anyway, just a huge contributor.
I
Always.
think he's on there. He was there. Oh, mhm. Anything further? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
5-0, no opposition. Motion carries. All right, is there a motion for, oh, this is first read. Okay, so we have the December 2022 board policy revisions for many sections.
But there are several with some different options. So I just want to make sure that, we all take the opportunity to review that, and Dr. Maris has recommended certain options. So should just read that so that we can safely agree with those next month.
All right, moving on to personnel. Is there a motion for the consideration of approval of the following resignations? Ms. Sullivan, student supervisor, as of December 22nd, 2022, and Ms. Kubilos, after-school activities leader, as of December 19, 2022.
I move that we approve the following resignations, although I've never understood the need for them, but I also report that Ms. Sullivan is doing quite well in the sun.
You're stealing my thunder, Mr. Sullivan. You're stealing my thunder. But I mean, I just wanted to really tell you.
Second first, and then we will.
Is there a second? And then discussion?
Yes, I just wanted to tell you, I mean, I just can't say, and both of these folks have been contributors, but I wanted to just make a mention about Ms. Sullivan. I think she's been an incredible supporter to us through very challenging times. And when I first met her, my first year here, very nervous about being alone in the classroom with a number of kids. And by the time that, December rolled around, she had been filling in for us in just about every critical position, opportunity as it presented. True professional, very, very, very adaptable, and just stepped in for us with tremendous, tremendous passion and commitment. So she will be missed. Hopefully, there's an opportunity to bring her back when she's ready to return. And but I just can't say enough positive things. She filled in for Ms. Fisher when she went out. That was the first time that she had really been there an extended time during hybrid, and this was during her maternity leave, and that happened sooner than we thought. And on down the list, I can cite you just 10 different examples of her stepping up in just some tremendous ways. So wishing her the best, and asked her to continue to let us know how she's doing. So thank you.
If I could just interject, I don't know if the other board members know, but she's got a degree in elementary education, and she's gone back to get her student teaching and student certification. And so she'll be gone through the end of June.
All right, well, thank you for letting us know. All those in favor?
All right.
All right, no opposition, motion carries 5-0. Yes, and then items for future consideration, we have the consolidated application for federal funding and the LCAP. And the future meeting is February 21st at 6 p.m.
A little delayed, but I wanted to offer this up to Dr. Camby. Being board president is not an easy thing. Comes with a lot of added responsibility, and just very, very thankful. So I just wanted to make sure that we recognize Dr. Camby for recognition of his dedication and leadership to the board in 2022. So thank you very much, Dr. Camby. Sorry.
All right, cool. All right, thank you.
And did we say that in the next meeting, we're going to have the photographer here to take a photo of this platform?
We're going to work that out so that we can coordinate with schedule up to this board meeting.
Okay.
Next summer.
All right, so next board meeting, February 21st at 6 p.m. And we adjourn at 7:55.